Thank you, David. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Rob Sanders. I'm the Commonwealth's attorney in Kenton County, which is the 16th Judicial Circuit in Kentucky. I know it says on your agenda that Commonwealth Attorney Chris Coron was going to be here with me. He is our other legislative co-chair. He is from Warren County and sends his regards. He was unable to make it today because he's tied up with preparations for a murder trial that starts in the next day or two. I'll get right to it, and I'll be very brief because, quite frankly, all of our issues are somewhat intertwined. Our legislative priorities are, of course, the pension debate and discussion and reform that I'm sure you've already heard plenty about and continue to hear plenty about, as you will today. The budget and both the prospective budget to come for the next biennium, but also any mid-year change in this year's current budget and the effects that would have on our office, and also playing defense somewhat, or at least making sure that any new criminal laws that come down the pike are things that are both, most importantly, not an unfunded mandate, and number two, not going to result in a great deal of litigation at the trial court level, debating their constitutionality. All of these result, if they don't go well for us, in a complicated ability to retain qualified and experienced staff, whether it's a reduction in the take-home pay for our current employees through increased pension or health care costs, whether it's a cut to our budget, or whether it's increased litigation at the trial court level. All of those would take away our ability to retain staff or our ability to work on other cases, and we handle all the worst of the worst cases: the murders, the rapes, the robberies, the child molestings, child pornography, you name it, all the most violent criminals. Those are the ones that we prosecute in our office. We need the best, most experienced lawyers we can possibly get prosecuting on behalf of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We have very good criminal defense attorneys that come into court, some of them amongst the ranks of the legislators here in Frankfort, but we want the people working for the Commonwealth of Kentucky that are just as good, just as talented, and just as experienced as the defense attorneys we are going up against. Any cut to our budget, we're to the point where we're about 90% personnel. I think it's actually about 89% personnel. Any further cuts to our budget is going to be a reduction in personnel or massive reduction in salaries, which of course will result in a loss of personnel that don't want to stick around for less money. The 17% number that was kicked around for a mid-year cut would effectively shut down Commonwealth attorneys' offices effective March 1st, and that would give us about 3 more months left in the fiscal year, which we literally would have only the elected official coming to work. Any cuts to our budget going forward results you have to prioritize. We have to have the prosecutors to handle the murder cases, the child molesting cases, the rapes, the robberies, all those offenses that I listed before. The people that would go first are the people like the victims' advocates, because they're not the ones actually prosecuting the cases, or the prosecutors that have been hired under the rocket docket funding, and the rocket docket funding was a product of the heroin bill, and that rocket docket funding has already saved the Commonwealth and the counties within the Commonwealth over $8 million in mostly in jail costs, but also in litigation expenses and the costs of going forward. Last year, the Commonwealth attorneys, the county attorneys, and the Department of Public Advocacy, for maybe the first time ever, agreed on something, and that was the study of it costs more to pay less. And that's the notion that anytime we are paying less, we're increasing our overall cost of the criminal justice system, because when we lose experienced staff, the process slows down. Newer staff cannot handle as big a caseloads. They can't handle the complicated cases. That causes increased jail costs. It causes increasing costs for the public defenders and for the judges as their cases back up and the cases stack up while we wait for newer prosecutors to get experienced, or while we wait for experienced prosecutors to have more time to get to their next case. So as we go forward, we would encourage you all to know that any reduction in our budgets in any form is going to be at the expense of experienced personnel, and also to keep in mind as we look at whether it's things like Marcy's Law, which we are very much in favor of. We just want it to be both funded and practical, and any sort of criminal justice reform that comes out in the future, the same thing. We want it to be funded, and we want it to be practical and able to be implemented at the trial court level. That's all I have today, and I thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, Rob.